Welcome to the first EMIS coordinators meeting of FY22. A little bit of trivia. This is the 30th year of EMIS reporting, kind of in the manner that we know it. The EMIS bill was put into law in '89, but it was implemented and they have been collecting pieces and parts of the data, but it was implemented to send everything through an electronic format to ODE starting with the 91-92 school year. I was a treasurer at that point, and I was very involved with doing it, and I have a computer background and I was intrigued. And so when LACA had the position open in the spring of '92, I applied and I started May 18th, 1992 as supporting EMIS and also assisting on fiscal. So I have been working with EMIS reporting since the very beginning of EMIS back in the 91-92 school year. And we want to welcome Jean Ann Allen back. You know, Michelle left East Muskingum, and Jean Ann so graciously agreed to come back part-time. And so make her feel welcome and make her feel like you haven't forgotten everything, and it will come back and you will remember and do a good job. And so she brought with her Mike House and Jesse Nicholson, because it kind of split Michelle's job into two. And so Jean Ann pulled in reinforcements with her today. So welcome to all of you. So good to see so many people coming back in person. I know we have several that are still connecting online, and that is, we'll probably always have the online option from here to whenever, because I don't know that we can get away from offering an online, but hopefully we don't have to go back to solely online. So let's see here. Our agenda today, we're going to talk about the FY21 open periods, which include the Career Tech Accountability Assessment, the Spring ELA, the Child Outcome Summary, other accountability assessments, the Student Course Grades Collection, Spring Alternate Assessment, the Current Graduation Credit Progress Collection, and the Graduate Collection. Wait a minute, I thought we were done with FY21. What gives on all of this? Well, most of these are assessment collections that, because of the delay of getting some of the results, the timelines for those collections closing have been pushed back. So that's why we have some of those still open, and there's a few that are crossing into years to give districts time enough to enter in information from summer, like the current graduation credit progress collection and the course grade collection, and make sure that all of their summer cleanup is done before those collections close. And then of course the graduate collection crosses years. And then I'll talk a little bit about the FY21 data review. And then we'll talk about the open FY22 periods, which include the SCR, the FY22 retention collection, and also the calendar collection. And then we're going to talk about some miscellaneous topics, including remote learning buildings, teacher history maintenance, split students, and then our next, actually it shouldn't be TBD because I do have that determined. That was one change I forgot to make from last year's presentation. Okay, our open FY21 periods. The career tech assessment closes tomorrow. I have loaded everything from the web exams. This is used to submit all of the career assessment, GY, and industry credential, DW assessments. Last year, they had it that if you couldn't take the assessment or didn't take the assessment, that you could use a grade substitution based on the grade that you received in the course. Well, that is available this year, but only for students that are in grades 11 and 12. There is also some information about the missing list. The missing list has some students on it that probably more than what actually are missing. If they are in an actual career tech workforce development program, which does not include your basic family and consumer sciences or home ec courses or CBI, career-based intervention, then those students need to have an assessment with the appropriate score not reported reason as to why they didn't take the test. I do know of some districts that they just didn't take the test or they took the test in the wrong areas. Shelley.
Progress book does not allow us to leave that code right now. So what I've been told is you have to export into the FFE, load it into your FA, add your missing students with the F code, and then export it out as the SEQ. That yesterday worked all.
Okay. For those of you online that could not hear what Shelley said, the Department of Career Tech is saying to use the score not reported reasons of an F. As of yesterday, that was not a valid option in student information, but we updated some tables last night. And so I don't know if that might be an option. I wasn't told that was one of the things that would be updated if we updated these tables, but I do know we had some tables updated last night. If the F is not an option for score not reported reason, you will need to create your transfer your file, but don't transfer it to the data collector, transfer it to your PC, then go into the EMIS FFE and upload that file to the EMIS FFE, and then add those missing records. Then export the period A data, and you'll only want that one career assessment or the two career assessment files if you have them. And yeah, the GY and the GW. And then upload that file to the data collector. And then your collection should work and your missing records should drop off. Okay, Shelley's saying that that option, the option F is still not there today. If for some reason you have any FA records in your EMIS FFE prior to importing this file, you want to delete them out first. Jean Ann. It is an issue that Michelle was working with us on, but she never followed up with us after she got the email response from Jeremy from the Career Center. So we may want to talk with you about that. Okay. The spring ELA closes on August 27th, and this is required on all preschool students, regardless of where they're resident preschool students, regardless of where they're educated. A couple years ago, they changed. So instead of the educating entity, ESCs primarily, reporting the preschool assessments, the resident district has to report the preschool assessments. So you may not be educating preschool students, but if you have preschool students with disabilities that are being educated somewhere, you're the one that has to report the assessment records. You have to report the preschool ELA, and the missing list will show any student that should have had an assessment and doesn't. And so you will need to correct that. And then also the child outcome summary. And the child outcome summary is required on resident preschool students who exited regardless of where they were educated. So if you have any preschool students who with a disability that exited special education or exited preschool, then you need to report the child outcome summary. Well, I'm not educating those kids, so how in the world am I supposed to get that information? The ESC that is educating them should have that information. Those of you in Licking County, work with Lori Vance because I think she has entered those already in your system. But if she hasn't entered them, then get with her to get those results. And again, clean up the missing list with the appropriate score not reported reason if you don't have results. The other accountability assessment closes September 17th, and this includes WorkKeys, ACT, SAT, AP, IB, International Baccalaureate. I don't know that we have anyone that does International Baccalaureate, but if you have any students who took any AP assessments, all of your juniors were required to take the, whichever your district provides, either the ACT or the SAT in February. If they did not, they will be on the missing list. And you will have to put in a score not reported reason for them. The biggest reason why a student didn't take the ACT in February is they had already taken it and gotten remediation free. Okay, that's fine. Add a record with the February date with the score not reported reason that the student had met remediation free score prior to the mandatory assessment date. I don't remember what reason that is, but there is a reason that says that. One caution on loading ACT records. The export out of ACT, the CSV file, is a cumulative file. There is no specific date, there is just a month and year. So when that file loads, it will add the record, even if the record is already in the system. It will add it again. And let's say your date is February of 2021. So the first time you load the file, it adds the record with February 1, 2021. And then the second time you add the file, it will add another record with February 2, 2021. And the third time you add the file, it will add another record with February 3rd, 2021. So be very cautious that Lori is saying about the cause in the ELA that they have been entered, and let her know if there's anything missing. So be very cautious when you get that CSV file. If possible, remove all of the records that have potentially been loaded prior to the last time that you export. That is, the question is, how do you know that? Well, I would keep a copy, my previous file, and I would probably sort it by test date. And then I know what my latest test date is. And then I would look at the new file, and anything with the test date of that date and prior, I would remove. Okay. Yeah, I just told them. Okay. Oh, yes. Yeah. 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 And those were some things that we had, right. And those were some things that we had sent out, and I'll have to find that email and send it out again to change the headers. There are a couple of headers in the file that are wrong. I don't know how to prevent. One thing I would do when I get the file, because the file is from anything that matches your district from like 2016 forward, I would remove everything prior to the current year. That would be the first thing that I would do. And then that would minimize the amount of duplication that you have. It's not going to error out because it won't know that it's a duplication, because it'll be listed in the system with 2 different dates. I guess it would probably show in the transcript, and then the guidance counselors could go in and clean up duplications at that point. The other thing I was thinking of, what would it do reporting wise? Well, they take the highest score anyway. So if they have multiple records with the same scores, they're only going to take one of them and throw out the rest. So I would say the transcript would be the biggest issue, and hopefully your guidance counselors are looking at the transcripts and would notice something like a student has 6 ACT records and they only took it one time. Just saying. Okay, the student course grade collection. This was a new collection in FY21. And at the June meeting, we talked about the 2 tables that needed to be set up in order for this collection to pull data. Megan set up the grade table to do the state equivalent from what your grade is to the EMIS translated grade. Basically, ODE EMIS does not recognize plus and minuses. So if you have pluses and minuses, then it's going to be an A is A, regardless if you give it an A plus or A minus. Megan went through and did all of those. The district responsibility was to define what terms do I want to be uploaded in this course grade? And if you give final grades, I would say for the first year anyway, just do the final grade and put in the term equivalent of YR. If you don't give final grades and you have semester averages, then I would do your first semester average, your second semester average. And, but you can choose to send up each quarter. That is up to you. There was a date in July, and I don't remember now what the date was. It was something like the 7th or the 14th or something like that. Whatever was in your files at that point was going to be rolled up to the 21-22 school year. So you don't have to go into 21-22 and set all of those for this year. If you did not do it, or you want to make any changes to what is pulled in this course grade collection for 21-22, then you will need to go into, don't remember the breadcrumb trail, maintenance, school administration, scheduling administration. I want to say initialization and terms, but I don't remember for sure. And there is a field called EMIS term. I have a student information session open here, and so I'm going to if I said maintenance, I meant management. Okay, I picked the wrong one. No. Here it is, reporting terms maintenance. And you see here the EMIS term. And for the building that I chose to look at, they have their EMIS term just set to send the final. And so your breadcrumb trail is management, school administration, scheduling administration, initialization, reporting terms maintenance. If you had something in 2021 when Megan requested the rollover, then it would roll up to 21-22. And you don't have to go in here and do anything. But if you had not, then you will need to go into 21-22 and add that, or you can modify. So anyway, high school and middle school, anything that would have courses for high school credit. So yes, Megan did both the high schools and the middle schools when she did the grade conversion. And so you need to set up both the high schools and the middle schools, any school that would have courses for high school credit. Okay, now that was all introductory or aside. What I meant to talk about is this is part of your staff course collection. Yes, the staff course collection closed last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it closed. And so you can still transfer the staff course collection. How does this get populated? I'm glad you asked. This gets populated when you run C-term EMIS. And when you run C-term EMIS, this will populate based on the marks on the students' courses for all of the courses in their schedule that is marked as report to EMIS and is for high school credit. So then when you transfer that file to the data collector, then you can run your student course grade collection, and it will pull all of the information from that file that was transferred from the staff collection. And you will have, depending on how many grading periods you want reported, whether you want every quarter grade, semester average, final grade, that is going to multiply the number of records that are going to be reported in this collection. Are there any questions about the course grade collection? So what you do is you, in student information, you do a collection on the staff course, or you run C-term EMIS. You run C-term EMIS, then you transfer the staff course collection for FY21. Even though it's closed, even though the staff portion is closed. So then when you get to the data collector, you just go to the staff course grade or the student course grade collection request. It's using that data that was in that transfer of all of your L data, but yes. So you can still run C-term EMIS in update mode. You can still transfer that file to the data collector, even though the staff course collection is closed, because there is another collection that uses that same data set. Well, this was new, and we talked about it a little bit in May and a lot more in June, but I hadn't really pushed because there was setup that needed to be done. And even though ODE opened it back in, I think, March, we didn't have the capability until the end of June to be able to get the setup done, to be able to start transferring the data. So that's why I didn't talk an awful lot about it, because I knew there was setup that needed to be done before it could be transferred. Okay. Spring alternate assessment. Those files are available from the testing vendor. And student information is well aware that the performance level that is showing on the assessment records in either the student achievement or the OGT, because that's where the alternate assessment records are displayed, is not consistent with the current breakdown of progression. That will be fixed, but it doesn't hurt anything because the scores are correct. The scores are what's reported to EMIS. The progression is a local thing, or the performance level is more for local information. So what you're sending to ODE is accurate, even though that display is not accurate. Clean up the missing list. Okay. There is a crosswalk out there that has the performance level progression. If you have a student on your missing list that their IEP event said they were to take the alternate assessment, but instead of taking the alternate assessment, they took the standard assessment, you still have to enter a record in the alternate assessment. So it would either be the student achievement or the OGT to say why they didn't take the alternate assessment, even though they may have taken the end of course standard assessment or the 3 to 8 standard assessment. Their IEP said they were to take the alternate assessment. Now, if the IEP was changed after the window or after your window of the alternate assessment, and so they didn't take the alternate assessment, but it was changed for them to take the alternate assessment, you would need to have, if they didn't take anything and they should have, you definitely need to have. Okay. I don't remember a newsflash on this either. Annie said that there is a, that you can use the course grade from last year for 11th and 12th grade for the alternate assessment. If they did not take the alternate assessment last year and they did not take it this year, so they have no alternate assessment records. And there is a crosswalk to tell how to enter in the score. And also what subjects that you can report. Okay, the current graduation progress collection, it also closes on September 17th. And this gets transferred when you transfer the student collection. Yes, I know the student collection's closed, but you can still transfer that data. And there is an update to update the core summary record, which goes out to the students' course history and current courses. So it'd be courses that they completed for last year and their course history and the college credit management screen. And it calculates based on the subject area for credit of the courses that they took for high school credit, the number of credits earned in each of the different categories to track the students' progression toward graduation. Are they getting their 4 credits of English? Are they getting their 3 credits of math plus 1 credit of algebra 2? Are they getting their 3 credits, 2 credits of science plus a credit of life science and a credit of physical science? And are they getting everything that is required credit-wise? If students are not getting the number of credits in all of the proper categories, is it because the subject area for credit is wrong on some of the courses? So those are some things that would need to be verified by your guidance people to take a look at. And ODE has sent out through the data collector under the reports, they have sent out, I think on the seniors, but I don't know if they've done it on what would be this year's seniors yet, what their credits look like and how they're coming. And also the college credit management screen needs to be completed with the number of college credit hours earned the students received on any course that they took as College Credit Plus. Remember, all College Credit Plus courses have to be marked as dual credit. And then that way you can go into the College Credit Management screen and put in the number of college credit hours earned for those courses. The graduate collection is the only collection that actually crosses 2 school years and pulls data from both. It pulls anyone in the 2021 with a graduation date after the first day of the 2021 school year up through out of the 21-22, a diploma date prior to the first day of the 21-22 school year. And prior to the first day is prior to the first day of any calendar in your district. If your master calendar says that it starts on August 1st, then it will stop pulling graduation dates August 1st. So that's something you need to be careful of. Again, there is an update of the graduate course summary in the graduate collection. This graduate course summary only updates seniors. The other update of graduate course summary does not update seniors. This one only updates seniors. And again, it pulls the college credit hours earned from the college credit management screen. Verify your cohort reports and the Prep for Success reports, and verify all of the graduate reports that are in the data collector and in the level 2 reports, the receive files. Make sure that all of your graduates are being reported. I tried to verify and I don't think anyone missed doing the power withdraw. So no one failed to withdraw all of their seniors prior to the close of the student collection. But you need to make sure that all of your summer graduates are coded accurately. How do I report a summer graduate that I just found out that the student actually graduated last year? They were attending a JDC and we were sending the work, or they were doing our online program, and they completed and we gave them the diploma in May, but no one ever told me, and I didn't withdraw them in the 21-22 with a 7/2 date with a code 99, and in the 2021 enter in their diploma date and type. If they are not in 21-22, then you will need to add their record in the EMIS maintenance student summer withdrawal record to enter them in with their withdrawal date and a withdrawal code of 99. You only use a 99 when your district is the one that issues a diploma. If they were a resident attending elsewhere and they got the diploma from some other entity, then you would withdraw them to that entity. We will be having a graduation reports training sometime in September. Annie and I are going to be trained on it within the first 2 weeks of September. And so then we will get the our training scheduled. We don't have it on the calendar yet. In fact, I just found out our training dates yesterday. So look for that. It will be sometime probably around the 3rd or 4th week of September. Okay, are there any questions about any of the FY21 open collections before we move on? You guys are pretty quiet this morning. Either that or I'm talking really fast. Okay. FY21 data review. I'm only going to talk about one type, but there are actually 2 types of FY21 data review. The first is the report card data review and verification. The second is the financial data review, which needs to be done with for the treasurer. This screenshot is direct from ODE's website on the FY21 report card data review and verification. Actually, this came from the newsflash, I think, that came out on Monday. So here is all of the information about it. The superintendent has to sign off on this. And the treasurer has to sign off on the financial one. The EMIS coordinator, superintendent or superintendent designee can fill out the data review forms, but the forms are not officially submitted until the superintendent approves to complete the process. Yes. In the early days of EMIS, and actually up to about 2, maybe 3 years ago, there was a sign-off form that needed to be sent in for every single collection. Yes, there weren't this many collections at the time, but your fall collection, your midterm collection, your staff collection, your spring collection, everyone had a sign off. And there were a lot of districts that the superintendents just never signed off. Not that the data was wrong or they didn't approve the data, they just never did it. So with the way that the collections are now, ODE has gone to, okay, we're just going to give you 2 sign-offs. And it's going to be after the data that drives the report card closes. And the student data, anything that affects the report card has to be approved by the superintendent. And then the financial collection, which will open after the financial collection closes, will have to be signed off on by the treasurer. So it makes it more simple. And hopefully districts will go in and sign this off. What? I don't know. I did not look at that, but what I did do is include a screenshot from the actual web page of where it is. And on the data review, it shows required to approve as superintendent, and it has to be done by October 8th. And then all of the collections that they're basically saying, yep, we're good. Any questions about the data review? And this actually should say FY22 open periods. instead of FY 21. Because we are now in FY 22. And that was an error on my part for updating the spreadsheet or the PowerPoint. The student cross-reference collection opened in July. You are supposed to report every student within 30 days of enrollment. Remember, you cannot show a student as enrolled if they have never attended. Okay, two scenarios. First, you have a student who was your student last year, did not withdraw prior to the last day of last school year, rolled up to this year. They are still enrolled. They were enrolled, they were previously enrolled, they are still enrolled. If that student does not attend the first day, they're to be marked absent, whether it's excused or unexcused. And then you follow your district's procedures. If that student never shows up, how long you do truancy, whatever, or the method of tracking down to find out if that student is attending your district. One thing I would do is go out to ODEX and see if the student's actually showing up in ODEX under another district. Because maybe they enrolled in another district and that district has already run the SER collection and they're showing that they're educating that student. If so, you can use that information even though you have not received a records request or withdrawal forms from that parent. You can show that student has withdrawn based on the enrollment to that other public or community school. Second scenario, you have a student that came into your district and they enrolled this year. And Jackie went through the enrollment information with them and told him our first day of school is August 18th. And the parent's like, oh, well, the only time we could plan our trip to Disney was for that week. And we won't be here that week. And my student will not be showing up until the, whatever next Monday's date is, 23rd? Until the 23rd. You cannot show that student with an enrollment date of 8/20 or 8/18 and show that student is absent on the 18th, 19th, and 20th because they have never attended. They were never enrolled and they have never attended. You have to wait and show that student as enrolled on their first day of attendance. So the rule of thumb, you cannot show a student as enrolled and attending until their rear end is in a chair or they have signed in online if they're doing remote learning.
So I have a question then for tech, because we have kids that say they're coming and they say they never show up for a week. But we're still looking, the districts haven't heard from them. So we still have them on, but then we finally find them. Or we don't, and then we withdraw them back to their home district to say, it's not here, not your problem, because we're not.
You would have to go on the same premise. The career tech would have to go on the same premise as any other public district. They cannot show a student as enrolled until they actually attend. So yes. And if they're a new student, it may be a fatal. And if they were a rollover student, it won't be a fatal, but it'll show up as there's no attendance, so you won't get funding. If they attended the Career Center last year then you can show them as still enrolled on the first day of school with absences until you determine their whereabouts. But if they are new to the Career Center this year, then you have to treat them as a brand new enrollment, and you cannot show them as enrolled until they've started to attend. Yes.
They're gonna come first day of school. Yeah, I'm sure this date will say.
For summer enrollments, we generally tell them to use 8/1 or a date prior to the first day of school and not actually the first day of school. And that is fine unless you know for a fact that that student is not going to show up on your first day of school. So if my example of the new enrollments that, oh, well, that is our week in Disney, I already know that they are not going to be there the first day of school. So I am going to use the enrollment date, the district admission date, everything as 8/23 because I know they're not going to be there on my first day of 8/18. So there's no reason to have to go in and modify the records when I already know that that student is not going to show up until a specified date.
We had a student enrolled in kindergarten. But a new SID number. I've not submitted SCR. Can I just ask them?
The question is, in kindergarten registration, we had a student come in and register. We registered the student. We had kindergarten orientation, open house with the parents. The requirement is that the kindergartners should wear a mask and the parents are uncomfortable with that. So they're choosing to not send their child to kindergarten, but we've already enrolled the student and we got a SSID on the student. What is it okay if I have not submitted the SCR yet to go ahead and expunge that record? And yes, you can. It doesn't matter that you have already gotten an SSID. The critical part is when they do enroll next year or whatever school they choose to enroll in, that they don't get a duplicate SSID created, but that they look, the SSID system, if the information was entered in correctly, even though you have a 4, it will pick up a match if there's a match out there. But if something is not exactly right, so if the student was Jamison Reagan, 6'4", 2016, and you entered the student in as Jamie Reagan, 6'4", 2016, it's not going to get an exact match, and it could very potentially create a duplicate SSID. That may end up causing issues later on, and because if they would leave the school where they enrolled him as Jamie, and then they go somewhere else and they actually enter him in as Jamison, it's going to pick up that original SSID. And so it's that's why it is so important when you are entering in these students that you are entering in their legal first name and their legal last name and their correct middle name so that these duplicates are prevented. And yes, if you didn't catch the reference, I like Blue Bloods, and I am a very, very big Blue Bloods fan. So the student cross-reference collection is what's used to populate ODEX. And the sooner you start submitting that, the less conflicts you will see in ODEX, because the more matches will be made between what other districts are reporting and what you're reporting, as more districts are reporting to the SCR and data is cross-referenced. The students must be submitted within 30 days of enrollment, 30 days of withdrawal. So far, ODE has not implemented any withholding of funding if, say, a student entered the first day of school, but you never reported that student until October 15th. Well, that's more than 30 days after enrollment. So far, they are not withholding any funding, but that's not to say that that will not be implemented. So it is very important that you do report the SCR collection within 30 days of enrollment or withdraw. And the other thing that I don't think people think about, you know, sometimes when some of these collections, you get the message that the student's missing an SSID, and well, I know I have an SSID on the student. Why is the student missing an SSID? Because I have an SSID on there. And this is the course grade or the staff course collection. Why is the courses showing up as a missing SSID? Well, the lookup tables are populated when the SCR collection is run. So you need to run the SCR collection in order to populate all of the lookup tables that's used with all of the other collections. So my rule of thumb is transfer my S collection, collect the SCR collection, even if you don't want to submit yet because you want to hold off until you get as many of your issues cleaned up as possible. You can collect and prepare. You don't have to submit right away, because the student won't show up as missing until after you've done a submission. So collect and prepare your SCR, and then you can do your other collections if you need to. We'll talk about the retention collection and the level 1 fatal errors on the retention collection here in a minute, which actually corresponds and goes along with what I'm talking about right now. It does use the same data set as your student collection. And the rule of thumb is run the SCR first and then start your other collections. Are there any questions about Tammy? Yes. Yes, the 30 days, because the 30 days of enrollment, even though you have an August 1 and effective date and district admission date on your new students, your school doesn't start on August 1. Your school starts on August 18th. So it would be 30 days from August 18th. Mhm.
Then you find out. So they can't be sick, right? Some people in school, you leave and class there, even though they're just really sick. But I'm saying that you must be there.
Yes. Yeah, the question is, they enrolled, we have them in the system, we anticipated they were going to be here the first day of school, and then they were sick and could not attend the first week of school. So do we have to adjust their effective date and district admission date on the FS standing record to show the first day when they actually did attend? And the answer is yes. A new enrollment, you cannot show absences before they attend. So even though you knew ahead of time, they were planning on being there the first day of school, if they ended up not being able to attend until the fourth day of school or 2 weeks into school because of being sick, then you will have to adjust that enrollment date and effective date.
And I don't have,
Hmm.
so is there any repercussions? I mean, the fact that the bringing kids are having. But I'm not.
You may get some warnings or some messages in the data collector of no apps or no attendance. If they only have absence, you will get errors of no attendance.
If they've not attended at all, like, yeah, but what if, right, that's the thing.
Yes.
So what if I've submitted after the first 3 days before, then I'll get everything in. They've got attendance.
Um, Annie, can you write that one down? Well, she asked a two-part question. The first part is if they mark them absent and you go to submit, will you get messages? And the answer on that is yes, if they're a new enrollment. But her second part of the question is then once they do attend and they're showing attendance, but they had absence first, is that still going to cause any type of error? We will look that up. And for those of you watching online, the scenario is a student was sick the first few days of school. The secretary did not change the admission date and effective date to be when the student actually started to attend. Instead, they just put the student as absent. And then when the student did start attending, now they're being reported with absence and attendance. Is that causing an issue? And will that be caught anywhere that the student's absent was actually prior to when the student first started attending? And because ODE does not get specific dates, I don't know if that actually will cause a red flag. If you never submitted or did a collection until after the student started showing attendance. So that is, we will look that up and send out a message on that because I do not know if that scenario will show up. Mhm. Yeah, we will look into that one. Do you have a question, Jean Ann?
they come in after the class year, like, so, they draw before, they come in, they're in and out in the summer. The shelter ask if we put them.
No. If you were not educating, first off, the question is, we have group homes in our district that we're contracting to have staff educate them. If the students that come and go during the summer, do we have to enter those in? You do not report summer instruction because you're not a year-round school. You do not report summer instruction. You report school year instruction. So if they were gone, if they came in after your last day of school and they're gone before your first day of school, you don't report them through EMIS at all. Right. Yeah. Yes, because you are not set up as a year-round school. And so that would be considered summer school, and you don't report summer school. Okay. Okay. The question is, have you run the SSID sweep yet? And the answer is yes, 4 times in the last 2 days. The issue is I have not sent out all of the messages yet of the students that did not get either included in the export or did not get an SSID because of errors. I started sending them out. I've sent probably 3 or 4. I had to do so many extracts because, well, I did one extract and got some errors, and it's like, why is this one district getting so many errors? And they had new building IRN, and I forgot to send it up to SSID that, hey, add this building IRN to this district, which you've gone through that before. You know the headaches that we've had on that. And so I was doing and then I got another request yesterday. It's like, well, you know, I just did it, but I'll go ahead and do it again. And then I got the approval that the IRN was added. So then I did it another time yesterday afternoon. So bottom line is yes, and I have the lists. I just have not sent them out yet. And Diana, remind me to talk to you about a little boy with the last name of Lyons. Huh? I have no idea. All I know is the upload to SSID does not like something in his file. So anyway, so yes, to answer your question, the SSIDs have been obtained. I was amazed at the number each time I've done the sweep that have still pulled records to load. And so I will try this afternoon to get the rest of those error reports sent out to people. FY22 retention collection. ODE made a change last year that the only students you have to report in the retention collection are students that were 3rd grade in FY21. What are they doing now in FY22? Because of their ELA score? Should they have been retained? And if they should have, if they're in fourth grade, why? And if they are retained, are they still retained because they didn't meet cut score for third grade reading? When you do that collection, you're going to get level 1 validations for all of your new students saying they don't have SSIDs. Number one, it's because your lookup table hasn't been populated because the SER collection probably has not been collected yet. Secondly, ignore them. They're not part of that collection anyway. They're new enrollments for this year. They were not there last year. Even if they're grade 4 this year, they were not there last year. You aren't reporting them. ODE is not looking at them for the retention collection. Now, in the past, last year, you had this humongous exclusion list that excluded every record that wasn't a last year's third grader. This year, they decided, we're just going to let everything come up and we'll just filter out and we'll just take what we want. Districts don't have to worry about seeing this humongous exclusion list. Just let it all come up and we'll pull out what we want. Is there a problem if I go ahead and put in a retention reason on a student that was retained in kindergarten? No, ODE will just ignore it because they weren't third grade last year. What do I do with a student that was supposed to be promoted and the parents decided to hold them back and keep them back? Just go ahead and change the grade level in the current year and have them whatever grade that they are. If they were third grade last year, they met the promotion score and they're still in third grade this year, then I would look to see if there is a retention reason that says they met cut score, but parents wanted them retained anyway. I don't know if there is a reason that says that, but I would look for that. So the bottom line is, if a student was in third grade in the 2021 school year, you have to report an appropriate retention reason in the 21-22 school year if that student did not meet the promotion cut score on the ELA. Jamie.
I was told you're not allowed to train third grade based solely on third grade. What that means, I said, oh.
Yeah, I don't think she can hear you.
Yeah, so in the 2021 school year.
I don't remember them talking about that. Yeah, I don't remember them discussing that. Yeah, I watched that last week on the first one they did. Anyway, the question is, the powers that be are telling the EMIS coordinator that they can't retain anyone solely based on the ELA promotion score. And there was a House bill that talked about that, but because this is report card data, you still need to report the correct retention reason for students that were promoted. And even if you did not retain anyone and mark them as the grade level next year equal to the current grade level in the FY21 final S collection, you still need to report their retained status appropriately for this year. And I vaguely remember them, if you watched any of Stacy and Kelly's ODE EMIS updates, they talked about it. And I remember a little bit about it from that meeting, but I don't remember them talking about it a lot. But I was at the first session that they did, and they may not have talked about it much because we didn't have questions, but the one Annie was on yesterday, they had some specific questions about it. And so Melissa Hennon did talk more about it yesterday. And she said it is very important that you still put in the correct retention reason, even if your district did not retain anyone solely based on that data. Is that correct? Yeah, even if you did not show the grade level next year in the FY21 final S collection equal to the current grade level, you still need to put the appropriate retained reason on your fourth grade students to indicate why they went on to fourth grade instead of being retained in third if they didn't meet the cut score. Gina.
I know you're saying, so we still put in the reason. I mean, retaining any kid. Don't put in.
The question is, we didn't mark any grade kid, say a kindergarten. We went ahead and showed that they were going to go to first grade, and now we're going to retain them in kindergarten. Don't we still put in the retention reason of previously retained and still retained? You can. ODE is going to throw it out. They're not looking at it. That is just for your local information. If you want to be able to track that and just see who was retained, ODE's philosophy is, because we can compare last year's data to this year's data, we can compare grade level between what they were reported last year and what they're being reported this year to know who was retained. So if Johnny was reported last year as a kindergartner and this year they're being reported as a kindergartner, then we know Johnny was retained. What they don't know is that third grade student who scored a 250, because I know that's well below the retention promotion or the promotion on the third grade ELA should be retained in third grade, but they're in fourth grade. Why? That's what they want to find out with the retention collection. Did they meet the promotion based on another assessment like a STARS or a MAP or something else? Were they promoted because of EL exemption? Were they promoted because of severe cognitive disability exemption? Were they promoted because the principal said they've given their best effort and we want to go ahead and progress them? That type of thing. That's what they're really looking at on the retention collection now.
What would be the attention reason those kids who were not retained, they didn't have to. I guess that would be other.
They would be on your missing list, and so we would need to review your missing list because your missing list is going to show, based on score, these students should have a retained status and they do not. So what is the retained status for these students? And so we'll have to look at that. I don't know those statuses. And I don't know when they're going to start putting out the missing list. And based on that legislation, they may not put out a missing list. I don't know. That collection. That collection closes on September 10th, and that could be why that it is open a little bit longer than what it usually is, because in past years it's closed August 31st. Any other questions about the retention collection? And we will try to find some more information about that, Tammy. Everybody's favorite topic, calendars. The initial calendar collection closes September 29th. What this means is that you have to submit at least one calendar with at least one exception to give ODE a baseline beginning and ending date of your school year so that they can start calculating FTE calculations. I would go ahead and any known days off that you have scheduled on your district calendar, I'd go ahead and put them in. Remember that you can use the calendar bulk update and the calendar exception management to manage your calendars and to update multiple calendars at one time. You can also view and update your calendars with the exceptions from the district level. Now, I will remind you that each building has a master calendar, and that master calendar has to show the earliest possible day the students that are assigned to that building would be in attendance and the latest possible day that students assigned to that building would be in attendance. And East, I will talk with you about your calendar because I'm not sure that we want to use the dates that you're using because of your group homes. But we'll talk about that later. And then go through each calendar or go through the master calendar and mark all of the days that every calendar in that building is not attending. That does not automatically put a state exception on the sub calendars. And you can have days that are shown as attendance days on the master calendar that might be an exception on one of your sub calendars. So then, once your master for that building or for all of your buildings are done, then you can use the calendar bulk update and the calendar exception management to manage your calendars. So I'm in Heath, so I'm just going to log me out, so it'll probably log me into Newark this time. I don't know what the timeout is, and I don't know if that can be changed. Yeah. So if you had students who didn't meet your reading promotion score and they are promoted because of the House Bill 409 promotion flexibility, then go ahead and report an asterisk, which means not applicable to those students, and they won't show up on a missing list. And then if they are retained anyway, then you report either a 1, the principal and teacher determine the student's not prepared for 4th grade, 5, adequate performance achieved on TGRG alternate, retained for other reasons, and or an H, not enrolled in the new school year. So your 4th grade students who withdrew from you, you need to report that H, they aren't enrolled this year for the retained status. Okay, so I'm going to click on calendar exception management. And as you see here, I'm at the district level and it's asking me to select a calendar. So then I can go through any of my buildings and I can select any of my calendars. And I'm just going to go to, if it'll let me, Ben Franklin's default calendar. And so I have Ben Franklin's default calendar. Now, the view that I like, it's a little small to see, but the view I like is the year, because I can see at a glance my first day of school, my last day of school. And I can see any exceptions that have already been entered. Well, how do you know if an exception's entered? If there are different colors, and the color shows down here at the bottom. If it is the slate blue, that means you've entered a student exception. If it's orange, that means you've entered a staff exception. So for this district, their days off for Labor Day, teacher professional development, election day, spring break, Christmas break, Martin Luther King Day, Good Friday, election day have already been entered in. How do you know that? Well, I'm seeing these blue lines here. And so I'm going to go to November 2nd, and I'm going to click on that day, and it will come up and it will tell me this is a teacher in service, and use the master calendar day type. And then it shows student exception or state exceptions, planned full 0 hours, and staff professional development of 6 hours. Now, if there is staff PD that took place prior to the first day of school that was professional development and not just in service or a work day, or after the last day of school, you can go ahead and add those staff exceptions in. In fact, you need to add those staff exceptions in. You also need to add in the exceptions for any parent-teacher conferences, even if they occurred after hours on a regular school day. Any planned shortened, say you have every Wednesday is a staff in service, and so teachers or students are dismissed an hour early. Then you would do an exception of planned shortened with the number of hours that the student was required to attend. And then on that also, so that the HB 410 attendance and absence habitual truancy calculations are calculated accurately, you also need to enter in this sub-calendar start and end time. So any of your planned shortened and unplanned shortened days need to have the start and end times entered in. Okay. I said there was 2 ways of doing this. You could do the calendar exception management, which is 1 calendar at a time, or you could do the bulk exception management. You see this plus sign over here on the right side or left side of the screen? If you hit that, you have a toggle to go between calendar exception management and the calendar bulk exception management. When you click on the calendar bulk exception management, you can set what you want your sub-calendar day type to be, which I would say you would use this most likely for all of your known days off that are the same for every calendar, like Christmas break, spring break, Labor Day, Memorial Day, if you're in session then. Huh? And then you go to the state exception reporting and you click. Now, one quirk, you cannot get your drop down by clicking on the arrow. It will, okay, it proved me a liar. Every other time I've clicked on that arrow, it has never given me my drop down. I don't know. So you select your planned full. When you select planned full, it's always 0 hours because they're planned full. They're not, you're saying this is a day off. So there's no attendance hours. The only time you put hours is if there is attendance hours associated with that exception or for the student. So planned full and unplanned full, those are always 0 hours. And then you get down here and you start adding days. And let's see here. We have September 6th. Then, well, we're closed for election day because many of our schools have polling places, and we're closed on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving because teachers get that day off because they work 2 evenings doing parent-teacher conferences. And since Christmas is on Saturday, we don't get our full 2 weeks off at Christmas. But we don't want to come back on a Monday. And then we get Martin Luther King Day off. And then we get President's Day off. And spring break's always the last week of March. And Easter is late this year. And well, we have another election day. And so then you put in all of your days that are common among all of your calendars. And you say, use these days. And then you go down here and, okay, this applies to default, the kindergarten, all of my kindergarten calendars. And I don't put exceptions on the default non-attending. So I'm not really going to check the school. But then you can go down through every single building and select all of the calendars at one time that all of these days apply to and hit save. And in one action, you have updated the majority of your exceptions for every school, every calendar in your district. There is no update. Oh. Only if you're changing the master calendar or the sub-calendar day type, then yes, you would hit update. And also on this one, you would say add exceptions. Sorry, thank you for catching that because I did miss that. So yes, if I had changed this and didn't say use master calendar day type, then I would have to say update on that, yes. Then you want to change this to a non-attending day and say update.
You have to go back to your master calendar and see if you really saved it on your master calendar.
That's why I say fix your master calendar first before you go in and do any of these exceptions. Right. I have not looked at the chat yet, no. Susan, I'm going to advise that you do not create an Eagle Wings calendar and have them just attached to your calendar, because that causes having those calendars with and having your master calendar start earlier than what your actual start date does, causes problems with your course section assignments and your scheduling and all of your course terms. And having those days as days on your master calendar that is prior to when your school actually starts causes problems. As long as the students have the correct number of hours for the year, I don't think in the long run, when you look at that other entity's calendar and their number of hours or days, that the number that they have planned on attending varies much from what your calendar does. And it saves on headaches to not have your master calendar being driven on those outside entities. So I would just attach those students to your calendar, default calendar for that particular building. And that's what I would advise for your schools. Calendars are already done and in.
They're already done. 17, 18, 19,
Okay,
and that's what was probably telling all the.
right, right. And that's, yes, but it causes nightmare in student information. And student information's workaround is ugly.
I remember at.
I know. I know. Yeah, we'll talk afterwards. Okay. So let's go back to my PowerPoint here. Once you submit, or actually, once you collect your calendar collection, there is a report, a calendar report in the level 1 or in the preview area. And I would recommend that you open that report and you can apply filters and filter on the line that shows the last day of your school. And it will tell you how many hours that you have scheduled for each calendar. And so that calendar report has lines 1 through 86 for every calendar. And let's say your last day of school falls on line 73. So I would filter on the column that has that line number and filter on line 73 so that you have all of the last week of school for every calendar, and you can scan down through. Yes, these are the correct hours. This is correct. This is correct. This is correct. Oh, what's wrong with this one? And then you can figure out what calendar do you not have the correct exceptions on? What calendars do you have issues with? Verify your calendars are reported correctly. It affects the student attendance and absence calculations. It affects your FTE, and it affects the course term dates. So we do need to have the calendars accurate. Okay, any other questions about calendars? I did not see any late arrivals. Yes, it would go, any of your exceptions would go on the default calendar and any sub calendars for that building. It does not go on the default non-attending. Or the master. The master doesn't show the plan shortened, and on your plan shortened for your late arrivals or early dismissals, make sure that you're entering in the start and end time on your sub calendar section. So if you use the bulk update on that one, you can only bulk update calendars that have like start and end times for that particular day, and hours and student hours of instruction. for the plan shortened exception. Okay, miscellaneous topics. In the budget bill, there were some provisions, and so I put this in here. This doesn't necessarily have a responsibility to you as EMIS coordinators, but you do need to know about it because it may directly affect you. According to the budget bill, online and blended learning considerations, if you have or are planning on offering a remote learning option as a permanent option as part of your district, then you should have that as a separate IRN, and those students are to be reported under that separate IRN. Part of it is because they're under lesser hours, but you have to be able to track student instruction and attendance hours. And this is directly from ODE's website. The highlighting is mine, but this is directly on ODE's website. Yes.
I know our we're doing a trial this year,
Okay.
so they're not making us get anywhere.
Okay. And I know there are districts who have had VLA options for several years prior to even COVID. And so those entities, I'm thinking, need to fall under this. Okay. Okay.
If you had that prior to last year, but last year where the students were, so that's the ones that you didn't like, not the ones that you were previously at some, okay, bus or that those ones. So that's why what you just said and what you said on our email, I think we need to together.
We will do some more, send up a ticket on this if you have previously had a online option. Because there were some questions on the webinar Annie was on yesterday that gave an answer that is different than what I am reading from ODE and what I took from the session that I was on. Yes. Yeah, Deidre was on that one, and I typed up my notes to our team after I was off that call based on what they said. So we will do some checking on that if you previously had one. If your administration is telling you, oh, we applied for an IRN for this, make sure that you do communicate with us, that because we have to build that building for you before you can put any students into it. And so we will need to do all of the setup of building that separate IRN for your remote learners. So there will be more on this, but I just wanted to make you guys aware of this. Okay, it is that time of year that districts are wanting to start submitting their files for KRA and for ELA and for end of course, the pre-ID files. So before any of that can be done accurately, you need to do a simple task. And that is to, and you can do this at the district level. I'm going to go to EMIS, maintenance, teacher history maintenance. And I'm going to go to the tab that says wipe and new. And on this tab, any of the green dots means that this building has finalized their schedule, which means they're not going to use the scheduler anymore to mass enroll students into course sections. And then what this will do, when we roll schedules up or course and course sections up from last year to this year, we tell your counselors, don't worry about having to go into the teacher history tab of the course section and updating it, because we have a way that can be updated based on who you have assigned as meeting on the meeting times tab. As you build new courses, don't worry about doing that right away, because we have a way of updating that at the beginning of the year so everything is accurate. That's where you come into play, because you as EMIS coordinators, you have the ability to go in here and do this. And what the wipe and new does, and I know it's scary because it has the word wipe in it, but what it does, it goes out to every course section and wipes out what's on the teacher history tab. And then it looks at the meeting times tab and it writes a new teacher history based on the meeting times. If any of your pre-ID files were created prior to this being done, two things happen. Number one, any new course sections will not have a teacher assigned, and any previous course sections may potentially have the wrong teacher assigned. So if you have teachers move around, or you have a teacher retire and you have a new teacher come in and you leave the same course section, but you just changed the teacher, well, the previous teacher is the one that will be on your pre-ID file. And that's not a good thing. So once you have selected the buildings that you want to update, then you just hit the wipe and new, and it will go out and do its thing. And then you can go do the pre-ID files. So there was an update that was done last night, and I'm going to verify. I'm just going to do one and open it up and make sure that it was done as it was supposed to. If you go to management, import, export, pre-identification export, and select the pre-ID for KRA, there are three options here: student, teacher, and enrollment. And the update that we had done last night, and I will caution you, if you have to update or open this, that if you open it in Excel, it will change the formatting of some of the files. So I'm going to just open this in Notepad. So it does not change the formatting. And for whatever reason, it did not select any students. Oh. Are your kindergarten students scheduled into courses? For whatever reason, it did not select any students. Okay, now it's selecting students. So maybe Ben Franklin, does Ben Franklin not have kindergarten this year? Okay, so Ben Franklin may not have created their schedules. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to open this with a Notepad. And okay, prior to last night, this very first column, the token, was showing still as 2020 KRAR. Actually, I think it was KRAR 2020. And with the update last night, the token is now 2021 KRAR. So if you do your KRA export today, it will create the export correctly. If you did it prior, then you will need to change that token. So, okay, any questions about doing the wipe and new on the teacher history? You can do it at the district level, and you can select all of the buildings that have finalized their schedule. Just make sure that there's a green dot that they've finalized the schedule. Yes. Okay. I forgot about my second slide. It allows for the correct teacher information to be populated on the KRA pre-ID, the NWEA map, the PSELA extracts, the EOC and the third grade ELA pre-ID extracts. And then I keep getting the question, is finalizing the schedule the same as integration? No. Finalizing the schedule means the building won't be running the scheduler or mass adding students to courses. And any schedule changes will be done on a student by student basis. Integration means that the schedule has been finalized and gradebook is now going to update on a nightly basis so that the teachers and possibly parents can see that information based on current schedule. In order for integration to be turned on, the schedule has to be finalized. But in order to do the teacher history maintenance, the schedule has to be finalized, but integration does not have to be turned on. The question is, does integration have to be turned on in order for special ed to be able to see their information? And Annie, does integration have to be turned on in order for the special ed softwares to be populated? And Annie is shaking her head, yes. Integration has to be turned on before special ed can do IEPs on new students or students in a different building. If they were in that same building last year, then they can go in and work on them without integration being turned on. But if they are a new enrollment or they switched buildings, special ed cannot work on them until integration's turned on. Integration would have to be on before they can enter that information in. The other thing I want to talk about is split students. What are split students? Why do we have them? And how do we report them? Split students are when you have a student who is primarily in one building, but they are taking a course in a different building. The example is, I'm going to use Kelly because their grade banded buildings are not the norm on their grade bands. They have a 6th grade student who is taking courses, 7th grade courses in the middle school. For several years, Gradebook did not have the ability to handle the student with schedules in 2 different buildings, and it would overwrite one of them. So we just told you, leave the student 100% in the building where 6th grade is, and then add the course that they're taking in 7th grade, and the teacher will just have to go into 2 buildings, put their courses in. That was all fine and dandy until you have a student, a 6th grade student taking 7th grade math that is taught by a teacher who is certified in 7 through 12. And when we report the courses, because 6th grade was not in the same building as 7th grade, and that student was in a course by themselves, the TLC report is now giving us a fatal error on this student or on this teacher as not being certified to teach the grade levels of students that are in the course, because she has a course with a single 6th grade student, and less than 50% of the students in the course meet the grade level that the teacher is eligible to teach. So the only way around it, prior to starting your collection, after you transfer your data out, I had to go in and edit the file to change the building and the course name on this course to be the same as the other in the 7th grade building, so that that student wasn't showing up by themselves and causing a fatal error on the TLC report. Do I want to do that for every district every time we go to submit? No. Well, we found out that student information and gradebook through the years in advances can now handle this. So if you have a student who is a 6th grade student taking a 7th grade math, you can enroll the student in the 7th grade. Do not create a second set of FS and FD records. And I'll explain how to do those in a second. And put the schedules on both buildings as the student is taking in each building. Then that student will be included in that course with the 7th graders. And so on the TLC report, the teacher will have greater than 50% seventh graders with one sixth grade student in it. And it will pass all of the certification checks and there won't be a problem. But how do I report the student? How do I show the student attending 2 buildings on the FS standing? And when you look at the student profile, the FS, the FD, and the FN records are the exact same regardless of which building that student is in that you're looking at the records. There is only one unified set of FS, FD, and FN records on a student. They need to show the building that the student is in the majority of the time with the combined district percentage, i.e. 100. Then in student information, let me show you here. My mouse doesn't want to work. SIS student admission history, calendar, edit calendar percentages. If you have a student, actually, Kelly, can you give me a name? Bishop? Oh. You see here, this student, and actually in the middle school, I would put him as, well, I guess grade 6 at the middle school is fine. You see here that it's listed that he has 2 entries here and that the default puts him at 50% both buildings. If he is not 50% at both buildings, if he's only taking 1 class at the middle school and the rest at the intermediate, then you need to go into that building, edit that admission history percentage, edit calendar percentage, and put in the percentage that the student's spending at the intermediate and the percentage that the student is spending at the middle school. So if the student is only taking 1 class, it would be probably something like 80-20. So that is what is used for the HB 410 calculations for that building. And so then when you look at the student's profile, it shows the student is at the intermediate 100% of time in grade 6. And it only shows the 1 set of FS, FD, and FN records for the student. Are there any questions about split students, what they are, why we have them, and how to maintain them? Okay. Next meeting. OETSA is in person this year, and the registration deadline is September 3rd. ODE will be presenting on all of the sessions in the student track on Friday morning. It is always a good conference. Will I be going over everything? Yes, when I go over the checklist, when I, at my next EMIS coordinators meeting in September, I will go over anything new for FY '22. So if there's things that, if you don't go to OETSA and you don't get the information from David Ely on what all the updates and everything are, I'm not gonna hang you out to dry. Yeah. No, I understand everyone's timelines and district. Yeah. Yes. So then our next EMIS coordinator meeting is scheduled for September 23rd. And again, we will have in person and we will do the remote option.